So, welcome to the stream. It's my first time, so forgive me if I mess it up a little. We'll start by this is about the truth about self publishing. It's basically a condensed version of everything I've learned about self publishing over the last 4 years. And we'll start with the difference between traditional publishing and independent publishing or self publishing. So, traditional publishing is a different journey, not necessarily an easier one, but it's definitely got its perks and it's got its drawbacks. So it's got a lot more gatekeepers to it. You have to get an agent. The agent then talks to the publisher for you. You have to impress the publisher. Then you work with an editor, and the editor may ask you to change things, and you spend more time. But you've got more support. You've got a team of people on your side. You don't have that when you are self-publishing or independent publishing. You are the team. You get to decide when your book makes it to market. You get to decide when it's ready. You get to decide how much editing is done. You get all the control, but that also means you get all the work. You are in charge of marketing. You are in charge of publication. You are in charge of press releases. You're in charge of everything. So it's a lot of work, and that work can take away from your writing. So before you decide, hey, I want to self-publish, just keep that in mind. You're going to have a lot more work to do. It can be very rewarding. In fact, you will make more money per book than the average published author who went through traditional channels. The average person who publishes through traditional channels never sees more money than they get in their first check. Okay, so the advance on royalties is the most money most authors ever make, and the average advance over the lifetime of their career is, well, the average advance is about 10 to 20,000. So it's not a whole lot of money. It's certainly not livable money, and that's why you see most authors keep a day job. And they have to keep writing, and they have to keep being really prolific with their writing in order to make money. You, on the other hand, will make more money per book. You will make, they may make 68 cents per book. You can make 5 to 10 times that amount. But you will have to fight harder for the sales. You will have to work harder to get into bookstores and outlets like that. But there are things you can do to make that journey easier too. And that's part of what this webinar is about. So, all right, and connections, because see, publishers have connections with a lot of people. They know people, they've spent years developing their connections, so they can call on those connections to help them market and produce and even get, it's red. Any rate. So they have experience, and that leads them to have a lot more connections available to them than you do. You're going to have to form those connections on your own. You're going to have to be the one to go out there and to network with bookstore owners, with other writers, with publicists, with journalists, with all the people you need to help you on your journey. You're going to have to be the one to make those connections. They also have a lot more experience than you do. Some of these publishing houses have been around for over 100 years, and that makes a huge difference. They have collective experience that you will never have. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes you can win because you don't know better. David outbeat Goliath because he didn't know he couldn't. So, you know, there are some advantages to your inexperience. You're probably going to take more risks than a publishing house was, and you can make better inroads that way. All right. Publishing houses tend to be profit focused. If they don't make money off the book, they consider it a failure. You're probably going to be more service focused, whereas you want to actually connect with and serve your readers, and that can be an advantage too. Let's see, it's a longer production cycle in traditional publishing. Traditional publishing, your book may get picked up by a publishing house, and it can be years before it ever hits the market. Independent publishing, it's as quick a process as you want it to be. You could literally, and I've done it, type it up in a weekend and have it produced that next week and available for sale. I don't recommend doing it. That was my first book, and it was a huge mistake, but I didn't know any better, so that's how I did it. You have a higher risk of rejection when you submit your manuscripts to a publishing team and to agents, because they only have a few spots to give and they receive a lot of manuscripts. You can bypass all that initial gatekeepers and all that initial rejection fear and go straight to the publishing part if you choose independent publishing. But you will not necessarily avoid rejection altogether, because then you're going to meet a whole new crowd. You're going to meet readers, and they can be harsher critics than any publisher or agent ever dreamed of being. They will give you 1-star reviews sometimes for things that are completely outside of your control. And, you know, that can hurt your book sales. So don't think you're ending rejection by skipping the middleman. You are just putting your rejection pile in a different place. So you have to be prepared for that, and you have to know that that's what you're looking at. All right. It costs nothing for you to go through, except maybe stamps, to go through a traditional publishing house. You're not going to have to spend the money to hire a graphic designer. You're not going to have to spend the money to hire an editor. You're not going to have to spend the money to hire a publicist or any of those other things. They'll pay you. So, but in some senses it can be more like a job, because you live paycheck to paycheck still. But in independent publishing, you decide how well you do. It's how much work you want to put in, and there aren't high costs, but there are some costs involved if you want to do it well. Let's see. And that's all. That's also another thing. When you go through a traditional publisher, they have a lot of control over what your final book output is. The editor can reject things that they don't want to be in the book, things that you think are important. They can dictate the cover to you. They can dictate the terms of where you can put that book and where you can't put that book, and what you can do with it and what you can't do with it, the rights that you have to it. And so you really give up a lot of control to enter into an agreement with a traditional publisher, whereas you maintain that control if you decide to self-publish. And that's a reality. So just remember, when you go to create this book, you aren't really building a book. You are laying the foundation for a business, and that's the important thing to keep in mind. So now that I've talked about the difference between traditional and self-publishing, we'll go into something that's kind of a scary topic for most readers, but we're going to talk about it anyway. I was taking a class with James Patterson, and he's like, well, you don't really need to worry about marketing because the publisher will do that for you. Well, when you're a self-publisher, you don't have that option. You have to worry about the marketing. And the truth is that you need to worry about it anyway. Even if you're going through a traditional publisher, meet them as a business partner, and you'll be in a better position to negotiate your terms. Meet them with the ability to be part of the team that markets your book. That's what they want anyway. It's not enough anymore to just have a good book. They want you to have an audience. They want you to have a platform. They want you to be known, because 7 out of every 10 manuscripts that they buy never makes money for them. They never get back what they put into the advance on royalties. And that's a harsh reality. That's why they're so picky. That's why they publish so few. That's why they're so cautious. It's just not good business for them. So come to them, to the table, with a audience built, with knowledge of how to market and brand yourself, and you'll be in a much better position to get the things you want done. All right, so branding is about deciding what message you want to become known for delivering, who you're going to deliver that message to, and why the message matters not only to you, but to them. Okay, so that's what branding is. Writing is about spilling your soul into capturing that message and letting yourself love on your audience by showing them who you are so they can understand why you care. Okay? Marketing is about connecting with that audience and sharing your message with them in a way that benefits you both. You don't have to feel like you're taking advantage of people when you sell a book. If you know the value that you bring to the table, you won't ever have to apologize for telling somebody about your book. You won't ever have to be ashamed or embarrassed to let them know it's out there because you'll understand what you're giving them. All right. And your marketing can start as soon as you start writing. Your branding will develop as you write. You'll start understanding who that audience is and what it's all about. And you can better equip yourself to talk about the book. And that's what all the marketing needs to do. You just need to talk about your book. Okay. Now, building your audience. This is one that scares people too. How do I build an audience? Where do I find an audience? Well, start with what you know. If you're on Facebook, start talking about your book. If you're on Twitter, start tweeting it. Okay? Let people know about your book. That's all you have to do. And if your introductory sentence is good enough, they'll ask more questions from you anyway. So the key to a successful book launch is building an audience. It takes the fear out of the process. It allows you to figure out who needs your message in kind of an organic way. You can tell who's responding to your messages and who isn't. And that kind of tells you the people that respond, those are your audience. Those are the people that really need your message. So pay attention to them, and you can start attracting more people like them. Show them you care by listening, by engaging in meaningful conversation with them, by encouraging them what they want and what their dreams are, and by sharing yourself with them in an honest and sincere manner. Okay? And social media and blogs make ideal outlets for testing your book as you go. So share who you are, where they are, and show you care by what you share. Right. Let's see. So there are free resources and tools. Don't think you have to spend a lot of money to set up a website and a blog. There are free resources and tools you can use right now. Amazon has Author Central. It's a great place to set up. You're going to need one of those anyway if you self-publish, and maybe even if you don't. Even if you go traditional publishing, you're going to want to have that set up. Blogger and WordPress both offer free blogging tools that you can use to set up a blog, so you can start blogging your book and testing your chapters and building your audience and showing people what you got. And that's kind of the best way to be known. It's free, it's easy, and it works. You can use post as often as you can, but don't let it be the excuse for not getting your book written. I mean, let's be honest. You can spend a lot of time on social media and you can spend a lot of time on blogs, and then you'll never have a book to show for it. So kind of make sure that you keep it in proportion. Only do as much of that stuff as you can do and still write. And then use free before you switch to paid. Okay? Don't experiment on your own dime when you don't have to. You want to save your money and invest it in making your book its best, so that when you do finally release it, it has a big impact and it doesn't meet resistance because it was a crappy piece of work. Okay? So investing in the good stuff, right? This is where it's really important. You should be spending your money on cover design. Now, I do cover design. I charge about $2.99 for a ebook and print cover. That's about pretty consistently across the board. You can spend more. I've had graphic designers I know that charge $1,200 for that. It's just really based on who they are. But so go shopping. Look at covers they've done, get examples, because if they've never done a book cover before, they're not going to know how to set things up properly. They're not going to know what obstacles they're likely to meet, and it's probably going to take longer and be less effective. Choose somebody who already knows what they're doing. Then there's editing. Don't skimp on this, okay? Use friends if you need to, and if you have them, but set aside money for editing, because a poorly edited book will not communicate your message effectively. Let's put it this way. The only difference between a well-known public servant and a well-known pubic servant is one letter, but it's a totally different job, if you understand what I mean. So editing is important. Don't skimp. All right, formatting your book. Microsoft Word is your friend. It's very affordable, and it has all the tools you need to do it. You don't have to buy expensive stuff or learn complicated things. And if you really feel overwhelmed by using even Microsoft Word, you can go out there and get for like $50 a manuscript template that you can use from somebody who's already set up a book format. And then you can use that to your heart's content. Okay, readers judge books by the title and the spine first, then by the front cover, then by the back cover, and then by the interior. So make sure the whole package is what they want to see. Otherwise, you're kind of throwing your effort away. All right. Now, publishing options. I use CreateSpace and Kindle Direct Publishing for my books. There are other free options out there like Lulu.com, but and Lulu is actually better in some senses because Lulu offers hard book options, whereas CreateSpace doesn't. And KDP is only for EAPs. So keep that in mind. But Amazon does offer, if you want to do an audiobook later on, Amazon does have a division that does that. So, yeah. Never, ever pay to have your book published. Okay? Never do it. Amazon doesn't charge you a dime for uploading your book unless you want their help formatting, okay? You don't have to pay somebody to do that. There are tools and resources out there that will help you learn to do it. You don't have to pay. I have seen people throw away hundreds of thousands of dollars, or, well, that's probably an exaggeration, but thousands of dollars on somebody who promised to make their book great and take it to a #1 bestseller, and the product they produced was total crap. And so don't go that route. Amazon offers a free option for self-publishing, so you can easily do it that way. All right. You don't need an agent to start. You might want one later. If you're going to hire PR or marketing services, be sure that you carefully check reviews, do your homework, make sure they can deliver on what they promise. You don't look and see what books have they already marketed. How well did those books do? Try to contact the author and see if they can tell you more about the service they received. Know what you're getting into before you pay for it. It's not that it's a bad idea to pay for marketing, but just know what you're getting into when you do. All right. Here we're going to talk about the parts of a book. Just a moment. Obviously, fiction is going to be a little bit different than this. This is The Right Time, which I self-published. So you have the front cover. Notice that the focus is the graphics. There's little text involved. It's mainly the eye-catching cover. That's the most important part, because this tells them the title, the cover, the tagline. It tells them what to expect when they get the book. The side is good and clear, easy to read. So if a bookstore puts this spine outward, the person browsing through can see exactly what it's about before they even pick it up. And then the back side is where you're going to put a more detailed description about why they should buy this book. So those are the parts of your exterior. And the interior front matter begins with the title page. And then you move on to you may move on to other books if you've done other books, but usually it's going to move on to the copyright page, which you can see is there. And then if you have any dedications and your table of contents, and then you'll go on to instructions, and then you'll actually start your book. And that's where you really start the numbering, is when the book actually begins. Okay, so don't number your table of contents. Nobody needs to know that. And nobody cares. Headers and footers, you'll want to make sure that you turn off the headers on the chapter headings, the first page of every chapter. When I first did The Right Time, I didn't know a lot about formatting, so there are some mistakes that you'll see in there if you were to look at it. Like for instance, see, I had the headers on the first page of the chapters because I didn't know how to turn them off. I've learned a lot since then. You will too, as you go along. At the back of the book, once you've done all of the work of putting the book together, you want to do a couple of things. First, you want to ask for reviews. Asking for reviews is the best way to get them. And letting people know that you want to help make your book better. Please let me know if you find any errors. Let your readers be your fact checkers, or not fact checkers, but your intense editors. They will find and they will let you know, and give them a reward for doing so. Tell them you'll give them a shout out on Twitter, or you'll give them something. You know, plan ahead and put that in your book as a special offer. And the last thing you want to end with is the about the author. And here's where you're going to basically go into what other things you can do for your reader, or why you've written this book and why this book matters to you. So you just want to put enough in your biography to help them connect with you. Maybe put a few facts that they wouldn't have ever guessed, or where you live and what you like and things like that. Help them connect with you as a person. And that's really all there is to it. So once you've gotten your book formatted, you've got your cover, you've got your editing done, you've done all of that, you're ready to upload and create space, and you launch. Be sure, if you have an audience built up, you actually, before you do any of that, like 6 weeks before you're ready to launch, set yourself up an account in Amazon. Has a special section for people who sell things on Amazon's site. So you're going to set up a section for that, and you're going to set up pre-orders. Okay, and start taking pre-orders for your book 6 weeks before you launch. Because whether you hit the New York Times bestseller list or not is entirely dependent on how many sales you make in that first day. So, and if you can hit, a substantial number of sales that first day, Amazon will actually help you push your book to audiences. If you can get like 600 people downloading, or 1,000 people, reading it, or 1,500, Amazon will reach out to people that have bought similar books and let them know about your book and suggest that they try it. It was kind of really cool the first time that ever happened to me. I was like, wow, look, Amazon mentioned me. How awesome is that? So make sure that you are pitching that book before you're ready to sell, but don't set up for pre-sales until you have finalized what you want to go into that book, and for a fact you can deliver it. Because again, you're in business. You don't want to disappoint your customers. You don't want to promise something you can't then deliver. So make sure that your book is in final content and ready to go before doing pre-sales. I've made that mistake. You don't want to do it. And then the last thing I would say, we've only got like 3.5 minutes or so to close, is that, your book launches and it doesn't do well. Don't panic. Go back. Look at what happened. See what you can fix. Your first time isn't going to be magic. The truth is, it's going to be heck. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that you'll wish you didn't do later. My first mistake was turning it over to somebody who had no experience in the publishing industry. He didn't know what to do with the book, and he's not a very good publisher. But you know what? I'm grateful for that because I learned from that experience, and that's when I started taking things into my own hands instead of waiting for things to happen to me. And I wouldn't be able to teach you all of this now if he hadn't been such a lousy publisher. So learn from your experiences. If you fail at something, don't let it stop you. Just keep going. Get some help, get some support, get some feedback, and keep going. And let's see. That's the truth about self-publishing.